write a response. Who's the audience? A patient without medical training. The tone is professional, polite. And any examples? Well, in this case, you'll generate a response in the form of an email, and then in the prompt, I post the complaint. And this is what I get off that. Okay, so let's start again. Bit more detail. Thank you for your complaint. Sorry to hear you're unhappy with the care. Understand your frustration. Okay. Next thing, saw you on this date. Diagnosed. Oh, it's hallucinating still. At that time, despite me saying, only work with what I told you. At that time, I explained the antibiotics are not effective against viral infections. Well, it's gone even worse here. I can't tell that. Advised on how to. I didn't do any of these things, so it's got a wee bit worse, right? But I still think it's important that I put this context in there, so about the actual course and the writing the letter. Okay, so we can do a bit better. In this case, the structure didn't solve it. So I'm going to provide some more context. So large language models are constrained. They only know what they've been trained on, and that's in a fixed period of time. But because of the sort of patterns that the patterns they've identified within this, if you supply more context, you can actually extend it. So what I might do in this situation is supply some extra data, and it's supplied directly in this prompt. There is another methodology called RAG, which I'll cover in a moment. And these models have a limited amount. I mean, practically speaking, they're huge. 128,000 tokens is about 100,000 words. But that's the whole conversation. So you can run out of it if you have a long conversation. Claude has a larger context window. Gemini has 1 million or even 2 million in some cases. So that's a lot of data. Or you can upload files as well, right? We'll come back to that. Now, bear in mind, the more context you put in is good, but the model may select the wrong piece of context to inform the answer. So you want to sort of find a middle ground. RAG, for those that are interested, say, for example, I've got an entire library of guidelines that I want to draw on, and I don't want to have to physically go and find the right guideline and bring it back in. RAG is essentially a way in which the model, when you put the prompt in, will identify what parts of that information are relevant and bring it back in. I'm not going to go deeper than that right now. There's quite a lot of complexity to it, but this is a very popular way of using large amounts of additional context that you might have and bringing it in. Okay, so here's the new prompt. Okay, so you recognize most of it. In bold is a bit I changed. I'll provide you with a letter and the notes. Yeah, well, I should provide the letter, but also my notes. I'll also provide you with the nice guidelines on sore throats. Prescribing, like one of the sort of tablets of stone that you'll use in general practice. You're not going to add any information that has not been provided. You'll review this letter and write a response. And then the rest is much the same. So I've sort of enriched this with some extra context. And here we go. So thank you for your letter of complaint. Sorry to hear. Yeah, sure you take concern seriously. Understand you're seen by a colleague the day after consultation. So from viewing your medical records, here we go. Note during your consultation on me, I performed a full examination in history. I have provided like an extra set of notes. Clinical findings for the fact you only had symptoms for 2 days led to my decision to manage your symptoms conservatively, which I'd written. I didn't know this. It's in line with current NICE guidelines for the management of acute sore throats. Then there's the acknowledgement. And actually it draws some more information from the NICE guidelines here to enrich this a little bit further about the resolution of these symptoms, which is good. The ending has got a little bit worse. I'd like it maybe to have a little bit more. But again, I'm going to use this as an aid to my thinking, not a replacement. So I might use this to help improve the sort of starter of this as well. But that's pretty good. But I can probably do better. And the simple way of doing better is just saying, think step by step. And I literally mean, say, think step by step. You just add that. And that seems like a really silly thing. But again, the world of AI and AI research and large language models is a bit weird. But this thinking step by step reflects some of the training that happened where sort of longer examples of thinking were provided. And when you do this, no one's entirely sure why this works. But the model is spending more time, more tokens, more predictions on the steps along the way, and is more likely to end up with a useful prediction at the end of this. So think about when you're at school, like, what's the answer to this question? My hand goes up, oh, it's this. I've just rushed it and I don't do it right. Slow down, think about things. Essentially doing the same thing. So just let's think this through step by step. Or you can actually provide it with a step-by-step instructions, and this improves things. And that's the instruction prompting, is literally breaking it into steps. You will do this, then you will do that, then you will do the other thing. Yeah? So think of it like programming, but in natural language, or you're instructing this intern that's come in. And you can give it all as a whole list, or you can just actually do it step by step, or you could do like party rock, like I said, and do like little separate pieces. Or you can ask the model to do it. There's a lot of different ways into it. Like, this is for you to explore. So in this case, the expectation I changed here. Think things through step by step. There's the magic words. I'll provide you with the notes, the complaint, the NICE guidelines. You'll first read the notes and consider the diagnosis and treatment plan against the guidelines. You'll then read the complaint and consider it against the notes and best practice. You'll then write a response referencing the notes and the NICE guidelines where appropriate. So I've been much, much more specific here. And as a result, it's better here again. So same sort of start, same sort of next paragraph as well. Then it's much more explicit about the NICE guidelines, including a link to that as well, just in this sort of simple example. And it even makes another reference in there to, sorry you felt my care was inadequate, always strive for this, and so on. So at this point, I'm not going to be sending this out for the reasons that I said, but that's getting much, much closer to a complaint response that's actually going to be useful. So this is an illustrated example right here, but there's lots and lots of different ways that you could do this. So what do you actually tweak it, okay? So how can you tweak this? How can you get it a bit better? Well, you can change the context and mix things up, but there are other little things you can do. So number one is you just have a conversation. You just go through it in more detail and ask more questions, and you can improve your prompt. You can check the order of the instructions. Sometimes the models will pay more attention to what's at the start or the end of a prompt, so you might want to move things around. And there are some little bonus tips. Whether you rely on them or not, I don't know, but the evidence shows that these work. Number one, you can try shouting. Okay, so think about artificial intelligence again. Think about why, what it's been trained on. A lot scraped from the internet. Think about when people use capitals and block caps and what the outcome is online. The model has learned this pattern, and sometimes this actually increases emphasis on different things. So yeah, you can try this. You can try tipping it or bribing it. That does actually work. I'll give you 10 quid if you do this well. Or my job depends on you getting this right. Or you're like, or even encouraging, you're like the best AI. You are great. I really trust you. Believe it or not, all these things make marginal improvements in performance. Do I use them? Well, no, because it feels a bit weird. But you might want to do that on occasion. And I suppose the useful thing about saying this is to sort of emphasize that large language models are odd, and their behavior is odd. Sometimes I say it's a little bit like we found a crashed alien spacecraft, and every so often someone goes in and comes out and says, hey, today I pressed these two buttons and it started to hover. Maybe these two buttons cause it to hover. Large language model stuff, a lot of it is like, we tried doing it this way and it worked better. There's more to it than that, but there's an element of it, and this is where these kind of strange tips come in. Okay, so you've now got a prompt that you might want to reuse. What do? Well, you can copy and paste it and keep it somewhere safe. That's fine. Or a lot of them have conversation histories, and you can do it that way too. But there is a neater way of doing it, which is called a custom GPT. So if you're using ChatGPT, custom GPT is the way to do this. It's like a guided way to create this sort of custom agent that you can reuse. And there's, broadly speaking, three things that happen. Number one, there's this sort of system prompt. It's not quite technically accurate. System prompt means something else, but basically, you give it the prompt that it will execute every time you use it. And you can also use it to retrieve documents, so you can load up knowledge that will be there next time and the next time. And you can also specify what tools it does use or doesn't use. I'll show you that in a minute. If you use the kind of assisted version, it'll create an image, it'll suggest a name, it'll help you. Why would you do this? Look, it's a really, really easy way of reusing a prompt, and you can share it with people as well. You can control how it works, the whole lot. If you're using Copilot, it's called a declarative Copilot, but this is a great way. And so you can see here some of the things that I put in there as demos. It was around about the time of the election, so there was a UK Manifesto Explorer, so I could compare what the manifestos were saying. There was a SNOMED checker. I was experimenting about how it was able to look up SNOMED codes. And then there was something about appraisal. Actually, a really good use case, which I think is a legitimate use case for AI, is actually an assistance for professional development. So again, not using it to replace thinking and process, but assisting this. So the appraisal helper was essentially one which would help look at the notes I'd taken from an event or something, and then help. It was like an assistance in reflecting over it and capturing what I thought. And the nice thing is this also has a voice interface, so I can just do it because I prefer to talk about it instead of type. So I'd use that. Other one is like, well, I have to match it to GMC domains, and that's a bit of a headache, so I did that. The final one, the morning inspiration scribe, this is definitely a voice one, and I use this, so I go walking in the morning, and I like to just sort of noodle on stuff. But I have ADHD, and I get very attached to ideas, and it can be very distracting, so I want to try and get rid of them, put them somewhere. So this custom GPT, I fire it up, and I can just say, I've had this great idea. It's, colored hats for ducks. It stops the ducks' heads getting wet when it's raining, and, whatever it is. And I can just dump this silly idea out, and it will help me explore the idea. And then I can get it out of my head, and then I have all these ideas. I have my walk. I have a nice time, and I come back, and then I look at the ideas and go, that was all nonsense. But some of it was nice. So I use it for that, and also aiding in reflection. These are the things that I use. There may be other ways you can use it too. But I've wrapped it up so I can use it again. What's the way to do it? Well, there's a very easy way. You go to I think you still have to use a paid account. I'm not entirely sure, but you go to create and you have a conversation with it. And you just describe what you want to do. And I've told you all about prompt engineering just now. Models can actually prompt engineer for you. But it's still nice to have some control over it anyway. So this way, you can just talk through what you want to do, and it will have a to and fro. It'll generate the picture and everything. And then on the right, you can test it. And then when you're ready, you save it. Use it again. There you go. So really easy. But it's still a little bit scattershot. And so if you want to do it in a slightly harder way, but much more sort of configurable, you go to configure instead. And in this case, you can name it. You can describe what it does. And then you put in your instructions in this bit here that says instructions. You can put conversation starters, like recommendations to start it up, things. You can upload the files. If you upload files, it can help in the prompt that you reference what you've uploaded, saying, when you do this, look at this document. And then at the bottom, you can see there's some tools. So I can say you can or can't search the web. You can create images. You can do data analysis. This is mostly about if you don't turn off the web search one, sometimes the model will, instead of just doing what you want, will go off and seek answers, and maybe sometimes don't want that. The final bit is interesting, is at the bottom, you'll see a thing that says actions. And ChatGPT allows you to upload the structure for any API schema, so you can actually interact with any API. And so if you understand what that means and have a domain or a tool somewhere or a service that you want to use, you can also add it to this as well. So an example might be there's like a weather report or meteorological API about the weather in London. And you can put the API details, and so when you ask your question about the weather, it will poll that service and take it back in. So that's very, very powerful, actually. But there you go. You've wrapped it up, and you can reuse it, and you can share it if you want. So that's that sort of boosting of how you prompt. So hopefully there's at least some things in there that will improve what you're doing. And I'm all about helping people sort of safely experiment with AI, because remember what I said about the jagged frontier. This is about you working out what it does for you. How does it work? How does it not work? If all you do is use this outside work, so on Sunday night, I'm having a bathroom done, and they delivered the wrong thing, and I was all pissed off. But I'm also very British, and I was like, well, I should complain, but I can't complain. I got Claude to write the complaint letter. So I just said, these are the things that make me upset about what's happened. And it crafted this amazing complaint letter that was firm but polite. And we not only got the stuff delivered, but we've had some refund as well. And it was like, so that's great, so it's helping me. That's not work, but it's helping me. But I also understand what AI can and can't do. And then when I use it for other things, it wraps in. So there's a lot of stuff you can do there. Anyway, I've told you about prompting. Sometimes you just want the AI to do it, right? Okay, and AI actually does a good job of this here. I'm going to try and do this live for you just now. So we went through the complaint, right? So here's Claude. So let me just see if I can do this, okay? I'm going to take that first prompt, and I'm going to go to Claude, wherever it is. Here we go. So here's Claude. I'm just going to paste that in. Okay. So I'm going to step you through this. So imagine instead of doing what I did before, I did this. Okay. So I just, this is like, I'm just going to do it. Here we go. So what's it saying here? Actually, it's doing an explanation here. It's quite good. And this is why I quite like Claude, is it's a wee bit more thoughtful. American language here, but, this is how you craft a response. And then, you know, it summarizes, yeah, diagnosed and correct, and then some key medical information, and then here's the suggested response. I mean, it's hallucinating again here. Look at this, but, you know, and then at the end it goes through this. This is probably more helpful for a real-world use case. I want it to help me with stuff, but it's made a mistake. I'm just going to say, you made up the notes. I didn't give you them. Okay, so you made up the notes, I didn't give you them. This is that kind of conversational thing. Here we go, what's it saying? I apologize. Yeah, here we go. Let's go back up. Okay, so it's apologized. You're absolutely right. But anyway, here you go. This is good. Do you have any consultation notes? And then I'll help. Okay, right, here we go. So I do have the consultation notes. These are the fake notes. I'll copy it in. Here we go. And let's see what it does here. So remember, I'm doing that task from before. Here we go. Oh, here, that's much better. Here you go, look. It's got the history of swallowing and everything like that. So that's all great. Do I want to modify any of this? Yeah, here we go. Yeah, let's make some references to best practice. Okay, here we go. And it's done that there, which is great. So that's a wee bit better, and it references the guidelines, and you can add things in here. So here's the last part. Always thank the AI. Okay, here we go. This is why I like Claude. There's your artifact. There's the prompt. I just cut and paste that prompt and use that. Job done. And actually, it does very, very, very good prompts as well, because it's been trained to create good prompts. So you might want to try using this as well. So I think we're just about at time. One final thing I was maybe going to do was just explain the last part. If you want to know more, and again, you can get access to these slides. There's a whole bunch of online resources about prompting and courses and everything you want there. So I'll have these available for you. That QR code goes to a business card type thing, but in there, these slides are on that. You can download them, okay? But if you want to find out more, this is me, this is my team. Curistica offers clinical product and compliance services to people building in health tech, and we also do an awful lot of work on AI workshops, teaching and training and helping you how to solve problems as well. So do get in touch. The final thing in the last minute, it's the 12 days of Shipmas, meaning that OpenAI are shipping a new feature every business day for the next 9 days now. So last night they released in the US at least access to Sora, their video generation tool. But I want to talk a little bit about O1. So O1 is a model that they had in preview, but is now out. So 4.0 is the one that you would use, but O1, they've trained it to reason more. So what does that mean? Remember that think things through step by step? So they've basically taken a base model, and what they've done is they've given it lots and lots of examples of reasoned answers and outputs. And then in that training process, what they've done is they've graded it on how good that reasoning and the answer was across multiple different steps. So they've trained the model a bit further to spend more time thinking, so to speak, and gives out answers. So what does O1 do? Well, O1, according to their evaluations, and I've played around with it a little bit, if you've got a task that involves something that involves quite a lot of reasoning and thinking through, it's better, in short. And they've got a pro model that's purportedly very, very good. But $200 a month, it should be. But they're asking that this is used for people with sort of deep reasoning problems. But it's really important to understand this is happening because this is showing a sort of split in how AI is being developed. Instead of there being like one thing that does everything, we're starting to see, at least for the general users, that there's maybe times that you want to use it for one thing and times you want to use something else. So 4.0 is better at the sort of general purpose stuff and knowledge retrieval and working that way. And I evaluated it against some clinical cases over the weekend, and that's definitely true. Things like multiple choice. 0.1 and 0.1 mini, which is a sort of smaller version, are worse at things like multiple choice, but better at long form questions. So what does this mean? This just means, again, that jagged frontier is moving. We're going to have to start thinking about what these things do. And ultimately, this is why I give these talks, because I want you to sort of go away, experiment, have fun, do so in a safe way, so you're ready as these tools come into clinical practice to use them best. So thank you very much. I'm around if anyone wants to ask any questions, but you can all go for lunch as well. Next talk is at 2:30, and it's an absolute doozy. We've got Hugh Harvey, Harris Schwabe, Nell Thornton, and Rachel Powers talking about the problem with AI. Here they are here. So they'll wake you up. Please come back for 2:30.
Hey, hey. I know you're going to go for lunch.
That's okay. No, I'll say quick hi.
Nice to meet you.
How you doing, man? You all right?
I'm good. I'm a resident doctor.
Oh, hey.
But also I work for the CQC. So
You work the...
I'm working for the CQC this year.
Oh, wow.
So I'm part of the National Medical Corps.
Hello.